Great, so let's make a start. So just a really warm welcome to Meditation Night, and particularly if you're here on the 21-day challenge, welcome to you especially. I'll be doing the first half. I'm Shubhanaga, if you don't know me. And we've got a very special guest, Amar Chandra, who'll be leading the second half. So I'm really looking forward to my friend Amar Chandra leading the second half. And we've been looking at this 4 levels of awareness, this model introduced by Sangharakshita that describes how awareness unfolds and how we develop our awareness on the challenge. And this week we're going to be moving into awareness of others. But I'm going to recap what we covered last week, what Arthur Siddhi introduced last week, because it leads on to awareness of others. Awareness of others unfolds naturally once we develop self-awareness. So Arthur Siddhi went into the area of self-awareness, and particularly the practice of body awareness. And he was looking at thinking and this issue of automatic thinking, unaware thinking. He gave us that word, prapancha, the Buddhist word. It's a very useful word to learn because we don't have an equivalent word in English describing this automatic thinking. So the issue with automatic thinking is that by its nature, it's unaware thinking. We're often not aware of it happening. And I thought it was great, actually. Arthur Siddhi gave us a tool for checking whether our thinking is automatic or not. You just try and stop the thinking pattern. And if it starts up again, then it's automatic. Simple. It's great, isn't it? So it's very difficult to identify automatic thinking. And it's very familiar to us. It feels sort of quite shocking to be told that our thinking is sort of not our thinking, because it feels so familiar. But the issue with it is that it's driven, it's unaware, and it's driven. It drives us into action unaware in an unaware way. And the practice Arthur Siddhi gave us is body awareness. To our way out of automatic thinking is to step into the body, and when we step into the body, we get a perspective on our mind. And I was just trying this out earlier this week. So there's a little example from me. I went to the hospital on Monday for a fairly routine. I don't often go to hospital, but there was this routine thing that I needed to get checked out. And I noticed my thinking pattern, because we were doing this practice, I noticed there was this automatic thinking going on. And what I noticed actually was that my thinking was going in 2 directions. One direction was I was completely catastrophizing. Oh, what if I'm kept in? What if, thinking through all of the sort of things that could possibly happen. That was one thread. The other thread was, oh, this is just such a waste of time. I'm supposed to be at work. There's nothing wrong with me. But the thing was, both of those thinking patterns were convincing. I was completely convinced, and I was sort of flitting between the two. And I thought, I know what to do. I'm going to go into the body. So I went into bodily sensation, and I just realized, I'm just anxious. There was just anxiety there driving that thinking pattern. And because I recognized that, it was familiar. It's very familiar sort of state. I've been doing this sort of practice for years. I knew what to do. I could just sit with the anxiety, and I got a perspective on my mind. I saw that this thinking was sort of a one of 2 extremes. And actually what happened, the result was it was somewhere in the middle. It was good that I checked it out, but it's not too serious sort of thing. So maybe you've got your own examples. It's interesting when we start looking at our sort of automatic thinking, but the example, it illustrates how we get underneath automatic thinking. And it actually moves us on to this next topic that I want to look at, which is emotion. So in my example, the emotion was anxiety. And it's actually emotion often that drives our thinking and our action. So my thinking was driven by that anxiety. And that example, it's a fairly sort of innocuous example, really, but it's not difficult to imagine that in certain situations that can go really wrong if I'm not sort of aware of that process sort of happening. It can go really wrong. We can act out of our sort of emotional states without being sort of aware. So what we're doing there is we're coming into the body, but we're actually feeling into the bodily sensation. We're deepening body awareness. So it's often in the belly and the chest that we experience our emotional life. And this word sensation, we've got a Buddhist word for it, Vedana, but it is just bodily sensation in the body. And we can categorize it generally into two types, pleasant or unpleasant. That's usually, it's maybe a bit simple, but that's usually what's sparking the emotions. Sometimes we're not sure. Sometimes they can be a bit neutral. But yeah, we've got these two types. So in that example, there was this unpleasant experience in my belly, and that was sparking this anxiety. And emotion is really, really important, because with emotion, we act on our emotions and we generate or we cultivate positive and negative mental states. That's where they come from, basically. Simple as that. And so we're moving into awareness of others with this. So this is primarily how we work with emotion in our practice. And like I was saying earlier, when we become more self-aware, we start to become aware of other people in our lives, and we start to sort of notice how we're relating to other people. And that's how we discover, a lot of the time, we discover our emotional states. We work ourselves out in relation to others. We're social animals. And if you investigate this, you'll notice that all of us have this tendency to objectify other people. We see other people in terms of our own needs. We have this sort of what's in it for me kind of attitude. It's completely natural, completely normal, nothing to be embarrassed about. Happens to all of us, happens to me. But the thing is, if we can become more aware of our emotions, more aware of this process happening by feeling into bodily sensations, we can get a perspective on our minds, and we can get some influence over that process of how we think and then how we act. And that's how we can transform our mental states. We can, and particularly our sort of negative, reactive mental states, we can transform through that. Yeah, so we're going to look at the Metta Bhavana practice this evening, and this is a practice of developing awareness of others. So metta, as you will have heard before, probably in this class, just means love and kindness. It's the Buddhist word for love and kindness. And it's the root of all positive emotions. So all other positive emotions arise from metta. And it's the antidote to negative emotions such as anger or hatred or anxiety. So it can transform those. And when we develop metta, that's when we start to truly see other people, as human beings in their own right. And this is what transforms how we experience other people and how we experience ourselves. So with this, so in the Metta Bhavana, the way I'd like to suggest we practice with awareness of others, we're moving into a much more subtle way of practicing. And essentially, we can't force awareness of others. We can't just become more aware of other people by making more effort. It requires us to become more sensitively aware of ourselves and what's going on in the body, in bodily sensation, particularly in the belly and the heart center and in the guts. And also at the same time, we're working to develop these sort of genuine feelings of goodwill towards others. So in the practice, as we go through the practice, as we bring the friend to mind, the neutral person and the difficult person, what I'll suggest is just see what your natural responses are. Really sort of feel into the body and really sort of notice how we're responding. And we'll start with the bodily sensation as a kind of touchstone that we can come back to in each stage. We'll do the 5-stage practice, which I'll outline in a moment. And if you notice that metta and friendliness is already arising, you don't actually really need to do much more. You can just allow your awareness to rest on those feelings, and they'll just naturally grow, even if they're just a seed and they feel fairly sort of not very strong or very subtle. We can just rest our awareness on that seed, and that seed will grow. But if metta's not there, try and stay with whatever sensation is in the body, even if it feels like there's not much going on. And then we'll just use the well-wishing just to nudge our experience towards friendliness. And yeah, so it's like I was sort of saying a little bit earlier, it's easy to try and sort of force metta, to try and force awareness of others and to force the metta through, particularly if our experience is unpleasant or feels fairly neutral. But see if you can just stay with whatever experience you're having and sort of be true to that, be sort of authentic to your own experience. And yeah, so the question in the practice in a way is how to work actively whilst staying sort of receptively aware. So these two ways, these sort of two poles, if you like, of practice, of receptivity and activity. So for example, when you bring the difficult person to mind, if there's anger there, the question might be, can I stay with that anger without sort of pushing it away or making sort of judgments, but then look for ways to move on from that experience and transform the energy that's contained in the anger. So has anybody got any questions on any of that? I'll outline the 5 stages before we do the practice, just as a reminder, and I'll fully lead the practice, so you don't need to worry about that. But has anyone got any questions about sort of what I've presented so far? All good, seems all good, great. So first of all, the first stage, we'll bring our self to mind, and primarily we're staying with body sensation in this stage. And that's whether your experience is pleasant, unpleasant, or maybe there's not much going on. Just see if you can stay with that bodily sensation. So that's the first stage. The second stage, we'll bring our friend to mind and get a good sense of your friend. You don't need a really sort of highly developed image, but you're just trying to develop a felt sense and see what arises in the body, in bodily sensation. And we'll use that, like I said, as a touchstone. And it may be that you want to use the well-wishing to nudge your experience towards metta, maybe once or twice during that stage. But see if you can end the stage coming back to bodily sensation, working primarily in the belly and the chest area, the area around the heart. That's the second stage, the friend. Now, in the third stage, the neutral person, we might be working with disinterest or indifference. So see if you can spend some time with imagining the person in that stage and just see what's happening. It might be that it's fairly neutral. See if you can stay with that sensation in the body. And again, nudging your experience towards well-wishing, if that's appropriate. And then in the fourth stage, the difficult person, just see what arises. And as I gave you in the example a moment ago with the anger, see if you can stay with whatever's coming up, even if that's unpleasant. And again, we're looking to see if we can transform that experience by bringing in the well-wishing. So just doing that by nudging, by dropping in the well-wishing. And this is where, in this stage, the fourth stage, it may be that you notice that you're trying to kind of force the metta through. One thing that can happen in the fourth stage is you can try to, in a way, cover over difficult experience. So just see if that's happening, and see if you can stay in bodily sensation in the fourth stage as well. And then in the fifth stage, bringing everyone together, including more and more people. This stage is more subtle. So in some ways, it's more challenging. But just see if you can stay in touch with your own experience as you include more and more people in the practice, and allow the practice to flow out from your own experience of the body. So I always like to say, just keeping the Metta Bhavana nice and spacious is the key. And also with the Metta Bhavana, it can be quite a low-key practice. So don't worry too much if you're not feeling very much in the practice. The main thing is just staying in contact with the body, and then seeing if we can deepen that into feeling into sort of bodily sensation. Okay, so I'll just pause for any questions at that point. I get a sense we're ready to meditate though. But any questions before we meditate? Say now. Any clarifications? Everybody okay? Great. Okay, good. Looks like everyone's okay. Right, so we'll meditate for around 25 minutes in the Metta Bhavana itself. I'll lead us in a short body meditation to get us settled. So just taking your place. And you might want to, just as we begin setting up, just choose the people that you're going to use, settle on those, just orientating yourself towards friend, the neutral person, and the difficult person. So when you feel comfortable, just closing your eyes or lowering your gaze in front of you, turning inwards. And just allow the body to settle down, allow the mind to settle down. And resting your awareness in the weight of the body. So just beginning to notice those points of contact with your seat. Notice where your hands are resting. And just allow your awareness to come down the body, just feeling your energies dropping. And maybe following this downward movement through the legs, the thighs, the knees, the lower legs. Feeling into the body. Coming down to where you're resting against the floor. Resting your awareness in those sensations. So perhaps you can have a sense of the whole of the lower part of the body. This broad base supporting your awareness. And for a few moments, finding your way to the breath in the belly. Just as we do in the mindfulness of breathing, this can support the Metta Bhavana as well. So the whole of the in-breath, the whole of the out-breath. Using the breath to locate the belly and the chest. And then feeling into those areas of the body. Bodily sensation. Maybe noticing if there's a particular emotional state, or just staying with the raw bodily sensation. It might be pleasant or unpleasant. Just feeling into the body. So moving into the first stage of the Metta Bhavana. So using bodily sensation as a touchstone in the practice. Just simply noticing, how are you feeling? And if you get distracted at any time, just coming back to the body and then feeling into the belly and the chest. Staying with sensation. And in your own time, you may wish to just nudge your experience towards metta, using the well-wishing. May I be well, or just using a word, just dropping that in, and then coming back to bodily sensation. So just allow the practice to be spacious. So moving into the second stage, bringing a friend to mind. So take your time to imagine your friend. You just need a sense of them, felt sense. And then just notice how you're responding in the body. Seeing if you can stay with bodily sensation. And if you notice that there are some feelings of friendliness, just allowing them to be there, allowing them to grow. And if that's not happening, staying with bodily sensation, whatever's going on. And you could maybe try out bringing in the well-wishing, nudging towards metta. May you be well. Saying that to your friend. And as we come to the end of this stage, coming back to bodily sensation, your own experience, noticing what's happening in the belly and the chest. Remember, this is a subtle practice. So moving into the third stage, the neutral person. Spending some time calling to mind your neutral person. And you might be working with disinterest. That's fine. Just as best you can, getting a felt sense of this person, another human being, just like you. And just notice your responses in the body. It may be that there's not much going on. So just opening and allowing your experience to be there. And if you lose your way, just come back to bodily sensation. Come back to the belly and the chest, feeling into the body. So coming into the fourth stage, bringing to mind the difficult person. Really get a good sense of them and really acknowledge your response. Maybe it's a reaction. Just allow that to be there in the practice. Really feeling into sensation. And in this stage, we're just looking to move on from anything negative, anything unpleasant. So just acknowledging that this person is also a human being, just like you. Just seeing if we can move towards nudging our experience towards well-wishing. See if that has an effect. And just see if you can settle in the body. Just relaxing your effort. So coming into the fifth stage, just coming into the body, really feeling into your emotional experience, bodily sensation, belly and the chest. And then we'll gather together the people we've had in the practice, the friend, the neutral person, and the difficult person. So all four people, including yourself. Four human beings with similarities and differences. And just see if you can notice whether your response So each person is different, or whether there's a sameness. And now let's see if we can stay with bodily sensation, but include more people in the practice. So starting with the people in the room, everybody here, all of us with our differences, and the things we have in common. And gradually expanding the practice in your own way, including more and more people. Staying with what your bodily sensation, feeling into the body. Extending out to all human beings. And just relaxing your effort. Just notice what's happening in the belly and the chest. Starting to let go of the formal practice. And we'll just spend a few moments resting our awareness, not doing anything in particular. And when I ring a bell at the end, you can bring the practice to a close in your own time. So we've got about 5 minutes before the tea break. So it's just a chance to explore what I've introduced and how we practiced, and just discuss meditation. It's probably worth saying I love talking to people about their meditation practice, actually. So if you want to talk about meditation anytime, you can ask any of the team, actually. We're always really happy to support your practice. It's worth just saying that. So I'm just sort of really curious to know how you guys got on with that particular way of introducing the Metta Bhavana. Might have been slightly different to how we've introduced it in the past, with a lot of emphasis on bodily sensation and opening up to our own sort of experience. So just curious to know how you got on with that, really. Anybody care to share? Okay, got a thumbs up there. Thanks, Amrichandra. Not you. Yeah. Anyone find it helpful? Or was anyone sort of wondering sort of if they were sort of practicing it in a way that would help them? Yeah. Got a question?
I cannot read anything that happens in my, in this area.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Like, I cannot read the sensations here. Things happen, but I don't understand what kind of feelings they refer to. But I feel it on my face a lot. But I think maybe it comes to the face, are they when they're more obvious? For example, tears come, my lips start shaking. Those are easier.
Yeah. It's interesting you use that word read, actually, because we do, the body and our mind work together, don't they? And sometimes we have an emotional state and we get a reflection in the body, like blushing, for example, something like that. So there's a sort of obvious kind of reading, I suppose, of our emotions. But we're working in a very subtle way in the Metta Bhavana. That's the way I sort of led that, and it can take some time as well to really feel into sort of what's going on. But it sounded like that was actually happening. You were able to notice sensations in that area. Is that right?
Yeah, but they feel like random feelings. But when they're on my face, I wonder if it is like second stage when they come to our head.
Okay.
When they're stronger, like blushing,
Could
tears.
Be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it probably is. Yeah. I mean, what I would say is to just explore, really, and don't be shutting any of your sort of experience down. So maybe that there's something happening in the face, something like there was something happening in the face, and then you can then explore more. You can kind of see if there's something going on in there. I experience a lot of my emotions, in my guts. We say the heart center, but sometimes I'm just here, and it's I'm really feeling into this area. So that's what I would suggest, to just keep exploring, really. Yeah. Yeah, it's really subtle practice, I think, the Metta Bhavana, isn't it? It can take a while to. Yeah, you're nodding. You find that too, do you?
Yeah.
What was going on for you in meditation just then?
It was quite a nice one. I have like a bit of pain. I get it sometimes, like below my rib cage. But I think I was feeling some, I don't know, nice feelings, and it seemed to change that pain a bit. Not still was there, but it just, I don't know, it just felt fine. Didn't seem to bother me.
Yeah. So was that a pain as a sort of emotional pain or a physical pain, would you say, or?
I don't know.
Not sure. Okay, it can be like that, can't it?
Yeah, it feels like a stitch, but I wonder if it is emotional. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, the body holds everything as well, doesn't it? So I think that's why we can often be not sure. But I mean, that sounds like it moved on as well. There was a sort of Yes, you were mentioning the kind of the sort of some pleasant feelings as well there, and you were able to hold both by the sound of things.
Yeah, it didn't bother me like it might have done. Just it was there. It didn't seem to change the intensity of it. It still was quite.
Yeah.
But it was fine.
Yeah. In that example I gave earlier about the anxiety, when I've been working with that for like a decade, or longer. And when I used to experience my anxiety, I couldn't kind of hold on to it in a way. I couldn't kind of hold it. But I think through meditation, it's like I could allow that to be there, and then ask sort of what is there more, and sort of hold that in a sort of bigger, almost like a bigger container or something. And I think it's a bit like that with unpleasant experience. We don't want to. It's like it's a bit sort of. We don't want to sort of go there or something. So I think if you can hold unpleasant experience then and learn to work with it, which it sounds like you have learned to do that, then you're making your meditation effective, I think. Yeah. No, that's good.
What do you mean by that? Is there more when you're holding it?
Well, I guess sometimes we can narrow down on our experience, particularly with unpleasant experience. I've found that I can do one of two things: either hone in on it and need to kind of make it go away. So there's this aversion coming in, which is a sort of emotional response to it. Or I can just get distracted and not want to kind of go there. And a really useful image, I suppose, for working with it is to sort of broaden out sort of to more of my sort of experience. So is there more in my experience that I can contact? And that can really help with unpleasant Vedana, unpleasant bodily sensation. So that could be a little thing you can drop in. Is there more? You can kind of drop that into your meditation. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. So that makes sense. Yeah. Good. Is any other sort of points, or maybe a question? Just got maybe time for one more. Or was that some wistful looks for a tea break there? Great. Yeah, maybe we'll call time there and have a decent tea break. So yeah, great. So we'll see you in the second half, and Amarchandra will lead the second half.
Thank you. Thank you.
Part 2.
Could be wrong.
Could be wrong. Great. So, well done to everyone who's doing the 21-day meditation challenge. I hope that's going really well, and I hope you're managing to get some consistency with meditation. Maybe you're not doing absolutely every day, but it's great to sort of try and build that habit of putting in a meditation every day. I know there are some people here who are doing the 7:15 meditations online. Andy's one of them. Where's Rob? Yeah. I found them great. I did the first week, and they're really, really helpful. So that's another way the slot is there. You've got the link. It's quite a good way to just sort of get it going. Yeah. But it's a challenge, isn't it? It's a challenge to put it into your routine. I don't know why I'm looking at Rob. You've done it. You've done it.
It's not over yet.
It's not. But you're a pretty consistent meditator, aren't you? Yeah. And it really can transform. It really transforms in a very, very subtle way. Getting a nod there, some experience. And now in the challenge, we're starting to look at the Metta Bhavana. And I think this is our most radical practice. This is what I say about the Metta Bhavana. It's our most radical practice. When I first came along to Buddhism, I wanted to change the world. That's what I wanted to do. And I think the the mindfulness is fine too, but I think the metta bhavana is the way to do that, because in a way, somehow I want the world out there to be different, but the metta bhavana transforms from within, and then actually my experience is different, and I pass that on. I pass on that experience, and so I can hold more of the highs and the lows of life, the difficulties in my own life, but also the pain and suffering that is in the world that we inhabit. This, the poignancy of the human experience. So the metta bhavana has really, really helped me with that, and I just think it's our most radical practice for transforming the world. Yeah. So, but it's it's interesting, isn't it? Because the mindfulness of breathing, it's pretty clear what we're trying to do. It's hard to do, but it's clear, isn't it? You've got the breath. Come on, be there. Let the breath move the body. Let my mind sort of try and be more and more with the breath, and let the breath more and more suffuse my sort of mind and awareness. That sort of feels like the practice. But with the metta bhavana, it's a bit trickier, isn't it? Because it's working with our heart mind, our chitta. So in Buddhism, mind and heart are the same. There's a really lovely quote from Jung that I love. He was with some indigenous leaders in South America, and they said to him, "Oh, well, the problem with you Europeans is that you think with your head." And Jung was just like, "Well, what's the other option?" But they said, another one is like, "Oh, we think with your heart." And I think that's what we're trying to do in the metta bhavana. So, we are habituated to be in our heads. And it is this process of coming down into our experience for something a bit more immediate, perhaps, but a bit more subtle to contact. And I really loved your question because I really resonated with it. I am also a smiley person, so I can definitely feel the metta. I can feel it on my face, but that's okay because I can use that information. And over my years of meditating, gradually doing this, I've moved my my awareness sort of lower and sort of more groundedly into my body, and it's a different kind of experience. And it does require me to listen a bit more. And I think some people have it more naturally. They're more naturally embodied, more naturally sort of able to sort of tune into their guts. And then some of us, I think I do a dialogue, actually. I think I do a dialogue. Anyhow, maybe we can explore this a bit more. So I've got a little exercise for us, which is all sort of in line with what we've been doing. Because what we're trying to do, so metta, Shubhanaga said, is a sort of friendliness, kindness. But that's not a big enough description for me, Shubhanaga. Metta is universal loving kindness. It's not just a sort of like, oh, he's a nice person, I really like her, they're good. It's a really like developed to its full, and maybe you were skillfully helping us sort of make contact with our sort of feelings of metta that we can just have sitting in this room tonight, where I am. But I really want to develop a sort of a big heart that meets the world with love and acceptance and like an easiness that can sort of really flow and have compassion and interest and open-heartedness for the whole world. That is what I would really love to be able to do. And within that, I want everyone else to be able to do that too, because there's freedom in that. There's freedom in being able to be really, really open-hearted. So we've got this quality of metta, and it, you know, Shubhanaga talked about the seeds of metta are always there with us, and I think sometimes we're looking for those seeds, or maybe those seedlings that are planted, and how we can sort of encourage them to grow. Yeah, and it's not that it comes. It doesn't come really just from thinking about it, or even sometimes from it doesn't come just from thinking about it, though I think there's a dialogue there. It's sort of something about resting back into our experience and perhaps moving out a bit from our sort of cognitive world into a felt experience. And that's, you know, this is a lifetime's work. So here we are, sitting here now on an October evening in 2025. I've been doing this for a long time. You might also have been doing this for a long time. We're still here practicing, sort of trying to open up our hearts, open up our consciousness, and be sort of better human beings in the world, creating a better world around us. Yeah. So we've got to, so there's something about learning to listen to ourselves more deeply, which is where the sort of trying to be in contact with us, with the sort of the Vedana and the sensations comes in, trying to sort of listen to ourselves, listen to our experience, have that more internal, intimate experience of ourselves. And from there, letting those seeds of metta grow, so that they're growing in, I guess, in rich, fertile soil, not just in the workings of my mind, which is really not the place to plant things, because it will shift and blow away pretty quickly. So I've got a little exercise to sort of help on another level with tuning in with our sort of body experience of emotions and Vedana. So Vedana is our physical sensations of pleasant, unpleasant, and not really sure, kind of neutral. And on one level, they're pretty immediate, but they also link with our emotion and our emotional experience. So we sort of, they sort of go together, they can sort of get those sorts of pleasant, unpleasant, will have a sort of maybe a cognitive, but maybe a felt sense of, in the Metta Bhavana, I'm comfortable with this person, I like this person, I really love this person. So they sort of give us a bit more information rather than just pleasant, unpleasant. So I thought we would just go through. I'm going to give you, we're just going to sort of sit for a little bit, and I'm going to introduce 3 different scenarios, and we'll just sort of see what our experience is, trying to stay with the sort of felt sense of things. So there's that part, trying to sort of stay in your body and what's your response, and where is it in your body? And actually, it's great if you notice that it's in your face, or in your belly, or in your heart center. You know, sometimes I'm aware, or I was in that meditation, I noticed in the stage with the difficult person, my jaw had got a bit clenched. And it's like, oh yeah. Just sort of soften around the jaw, come back to the belly. So we'll do this. But the other part of this exercise is to really bring a non-judgmental approach. So I think when we're doing the Metta Bhavana, and when we're doing, well, almost anything, and especially meditation, we bring a lot of judgment, don't we? I'm doing this well. I'm not doing this well, and this is a new practice, and it's subtle. It takes a bit of experience to get to know ourselves within the context of this practice. So it's really important that we have a sort of sense of openness to what's going on. Maybe there are better ways to do something or more effective ways to do something, but actually I'm doing my best when I'm doing the practice. And 5 years later I can go, oh yeah, that was a bit of a sort of, I've been sort of trying too hard, or maybe sort of having being caught up in emotion rather than sort of dropping down to something a bit sort of a bit deeper. But I was doing my best, and so I bring a sort of sense of appreciation and non-judgment for myself in the practice, and in a way that is metta. So so let's bring that sort of sense of sensitivity and giving it a go, and let's see what happens in a really open way. Because as soon as you put a judgment on something, I mean, you all know this, it sort of squashes it down, doesn't it? And it sort of kills the joy. So open it up. Shubhanaga had a really good question. He said, oh, what else? What else is there? So what's your question in your practice? It's like, oh yeah, what else? Or, oh, that's interesting. When we sit down to meditate, we close our eyes, it's just us. So let's bring kindness and sensitivity, interest. We can laugh at ourselves as well. That's also really, really important. We sort of bring that to our practice of everything, really. And that is the spirit of metta. Yeah. So let's just get into just a relaxed posture. Because what I'm going to do is we're going to do this, then I'm going to ask you to share in pairs, and then we might sort of get some feedback from people. So just letting your body be soft. And taking a couple of deeper breaths. And letting those sensations of breathing bring you into a felt sense of embodiment. And you can notice where you're feeling the sensations of breathing, whether it's high, or whether it's low. Is it in the back of the body? Under the armpits? At the front of the body? We can consciously tune into our heart center. And consciously tune in to the breath down in the abdomen. So I'm just going to ask you to bring to mind your mother or a mother figure in your life. And just notice your response. When I say mother, mother figure, where do you feel it? You might see an image of your mum that might bring her more present to you. Then you can see where that sort of feeling lands within the body. And then just letting go of your mum and having a couple of breaths. Present again with the sensations. Now this one might require a little thinking, a little memory to arise. So I want you to bring to mind your first crush. Maybe you were 10 years old. Maybe you were 14. Maybe it was last week. Just bringing into your awareness that first crush. And just letting that memory really be present, really build. And just notice where you feel in the body. What did it feel like to have that crush? How were you when you saw them? When you were hanging out with them? Really feeling into all that was going on for you with that first crush. Where does it reside in the body? And now letting go of that. Just taking a couple of breaths. Now, I want you to imagine or to bring to mind what it feels like to be ignored. How do you feel when you're ignored? Can you feel that in your experience? Can you notice your mood change? Can you notice that your sort of center of awareness changes? Being totally overlooked, passed by, feeling invisible, and feeling ignored. And just bringing yourself back to the present. Maybe feeling the energy and the temperature of your hands. It's a way to bring you right back into the present moment. The sounds in the room, and the light coming through your eyelids. So I'm going to suggest we get into pairs and just talk about what that was like. Did you notice those different feelings? And where you felt them in the body and those suggestions. So yeah. Don't be shy. Oh, we've got Shivanaga.
Being ignored, yeah, I could have a strong emotion. Which yeah, it's very intimate sort of language.
So 1 more minute.
No, it's just it's really a thing I don't sort of worry about. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Great. I'm definitely very interested to know how that went for people. I'd love to hear from people if they'd like to share. Come on.
Well, I can tell you how I felt about being ignored. I didn't like it.
You didn't like it? Good, Maria, good. Where did you feel it?
Well, so what I felt was suddenly like a dropping away, like, just as I felt like, it's almost like a gut punch kind of feeling.
Yeah.
It's really instant.
Really instant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. And so that was really easy to contact in a way with those.
Yeah, we were saying you wouldn't think of putting yourself, of coming up with that idea for yourself. So somebody else saying it triggers a reaction that you wouldn't necessarily experience if you thought, I'll think about how I would feel about being ignored.
Yeah, that's right.
Because then you're prepping yourself, aren't you?
Yeah.
But when it just comes like that, you experience something quite specific.
Yeah. Great. Did anyone else have, something about being ignored? Yeah, we've got two Nicks, and a Nick and a
so
Tom.
like it was quite interesting. There was a very polar opposite. So like when I was thinking of my mum, it was kind of like a warm, diffuse. It was like a thing, but then when it was talking about the ignored, it was almost like it coiled in on itself and like became like a knot that just sort of sat like a heavy knot. Is the only way I can really describe it. Sat in at the top of my stomach, basically. So like it's a really interesting, contrasting feeling.
Yeah. So thinking about your mum was a sort of expansive.
Yeah.
And where did you feel that? Like when
it was just kind of like it sort of was radiating from a single point, but it was more diffuse. It felt like a more like I felt it in my weirdly enough in my shoulders and things like that. But and then it sort of like it coiled inward. It would then sort of went away from that on the ignorance. Sort of ignoring side.
Yeah, great. And Tom, you were going to say something.
No, I was saying with it being ignored, I just really felt very relaxed.
Absolutely the same. Absolutely the same. Yeah.
Oh, we got another one.
Side of neutral.
The pleasant side of neutral.
Sort of very calm.
Just why did and did you? Where did you feel that? Both of.
Just very centered.
Just very centered.
Equanimity.
Oh, and where like so they're words, but what was that? Just felt balanced within your being somehow.
Very
centered.
Yeah, grounded.
Tom, did you?
Just felt relaxation everywhere.
Just relaxation everywhere. Great, isn't it? Great. Yeah, that's right. Isn't that interesting? All of these different responses. When I was doing it at home, it was great after the crush. Being ignored, it was crushing. Anyway. What about other people? Thank you. All these different responses. What about the crush? Did anyone get in contact with a sort of sense of what it's like to those feelings of the first crush? I can see some smiles. Oh, I was aware of all the embarrassment of the first crush. I really felt it in I could feel my breathing was, and heart rate sort of was a little bit up, and I could definitely feel, speaking of faces, sort of very, very warm. Is there anything else that anyone would like to bring in?
I think when you said how did you feel around the person, it's really interesting that we can remember that. I mean, that you can remember going back all, in my case, many
that's right.
years to being 10 and remembering how I felt about people.
Those intense emotions.
Yeah, meaning that, it's, like we say, your body does hold those things, doesn't it? To store them. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Like you said, cringily embarrassing.
So I guess the point of that exercise was to help us contact something a bit strong, sort of to help us and with the just these different ways of experiencing, of letting our sort of experience come, be alive in the Metta Bhavana. So that sort of sense of really bringing something to life, really bringing something to our experience. So you might be thinking of the person that you have difficulty with, really bringing that in. What is it about that person? It could be that they ignore me. And what does that feel like? What is the feeling of that? And just letting that be there. So that might be... That might be like, not the feeling that's going to be sort of crushing for you. But, if it's somebody that you want to have their attention, that could be quite crushing. But it's like really letting yourself, bringing that person fully to mind, I think is a really important part of the Metta Bhavana. And letting that experience sort of open up in a bit and feeling it. Now, I know we were talking in the first meditation, there was sort of really about sort of being centered and grounded in the heart and in the down sort of in the guts, really. I think down in the guts is a really interesting place. It's very good for grounding. sort of to let your breath sort of, or you let your awareness sort of rest a bit more sort of down in the guts. But in the Metta Bhavana, I also, I do a bit of dialogue because I am a heady person. I've got a lot of thoughts and they don't sort of turn off completely. So, and I'm sure there's lots of us like that. So sometimes we can get the information from down in the guts, but I end up, you know, there's a bit of dialogue that goes on. It's not as if I've stopped thinking. You know, I'm thinking of that person. Maybe I have to sort of say their name a few times, really just say their name a few times and let that sort of really sort of drop into my being so that something's going on. I can't drop into sort of that felt sense on its own. If I just sort of sit there, it's a bit too open for me. That doesn't really work. You know, maybe it does for some people to really sort of rest down. But I sort of say their name. Actually, I can bring the person to mind. I'm not really visual, but somehow I do feel and sense the person. But I have to really sort of bring them to mind. And, you know, some words might come up of, oh, they ignore me, or I feel ignored by them. Okay, what's that like? What's that experience like? So it's not as if it's a sort of just only the felt sense, because in Buddhism, the mind is also one of the senses. So the mind is conditioned. The mind is habitual. I don't know if you've noticed. And we work with our minds as well as with our hearts. So it's a bit of a back and forth in my experience. And then over time, the meditation will quieten down and I can sort of not be so in my head. But I definitely let it be a dialogue a bit with my whole experience, which includes my thinking, but I'm not letting the thinking predominate. Did I say that word right? Anyhow, yes. I'm not letting that sort of be the leader of my Metta Bhavana practice, because my mind is extremely unreliable. You know, it's not the thing to lead me into greater mental states and sort of a bigger heart. Something resting down, some other part of knowing that is kind of, maybe it's more my animal sense, or a sort of quieter part, an intuitive part that I need to give room to, which comes with resting down into a sense of being an embodied human being. Most of us, well, especially in Cambridge, don't want to paint everybody like this, but you know, there's a lot of heady people, aren't there? We're sort of in our heads, and that has led people to great jobs, lots of interesting work, and lots of things turning over. So there's something about quietening down that sort of that habitual way of being and sort of coming into ourselves as embodied human beings. And if you're embodied, you're also in the present, and you've got there's a possibility for a different kind of knowing that you can get that way. Yeah. And so then the other part is of the Metta Bhavana and of all of our lives and all of our practice is this non-judgmental, sensitive response to our experience. And as I sort of said a bit earlier, therein lies the metta. So I could have a Metta Bhavana that feels quite warm and fuzzy. That's great. That might serve me well as I sort of go out into the world. I might have a Metta Bhavana that is a bit tougher. I'm sort of a bit more distracted, or I've bought sort of, I'm having a few sort of responses and reactions. But if I'm bringing myself back to the meditation with a kind of sensitivity and awareness and kindness, that will last longer than the warm fuzzy. And then actually the person I meet, I'll be able to be less judgmental and insensitive to them. So that practice of not being so hard on ourselves, of working with ourselves with kindness, awareness, sensitivity, that is metta. And then I take that out into the world with whoever I'm meeting. I know myself a bit better, and so I can be a bit kinder to other people. Yeah, does that make sense to people? Yeah. Does that make sense to people? Does that resonate with people, what I just said?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the practice, really, isn't it? We work on ourselves, become more aware of ourselves. And the more I'm aware of my lacks and my insensitivities and my fears and worries and all that sort of stuff, the more I know that in myself, the more when I meet it in the world, I'm softer and more open and kinder. So I had two examples. I'm chatting. 2 examples of this. One was I used to sometimes my 2 examples are cycling examples because we live in Cambridge, and I used to have this time where I would yell at people, not exactly really sort of ferociously and loudly, but comments like, "That's a good place to stop." "Oh yeah, don't signal," going on and on, that sort of thing. And I would go through phases where I would be doing this a lot, like I would have made 4 or 5 of these comments on the way to work. And I would try and train myself out of it. It's like, for God's sake, stop talking. You're an ordained Buddhist. And then I sort of thought to myself, okay, this, I'd fall, I'd stop doing it, and then it would come up again. And then I thought, what is going on? And then I realized it's like, oh, there's fear there. Underneath all of that verbal abuse was fear right there, because I felt unsafe on the road. And as soon as I recognized that, it kind of stopped. I don't get into that anymore, because underneath all of that shouting at people was a real fear for my safety. All I had to do was recognize it, and it kind of really, really shifted. And then not that long ago, I was walking with a friend towards the station, and she had a suitcase. So we were on a narrow bit of pavement. And so she was on the pavement and I was walking on the road. And it's Devonshire Road, and there's some speed humps that go along there. And this guy cycled past me, and he gave me this verbal abuse, and I felt it in my body. And it's like, but I thought, oh, he feels unsafe. And then I looked, and there was a white van coming along. So I'm on the road, and he's feeling danger. But I really felt the effects of him really yelling at me. But I didn't react in a way. I thought, oh, how inconsiderate of me. Whereas I would have in the past gone on a bit of a rant about people these days, and everything else. And I would have really reacted, wow, that bloke there. But I was just like, oh, okay, I'm being really inconsiderate. He feels like he's in danger. And that was that. I didn't carry it around with me. I felt it. I felt the effects of being yelled at, because it's not neutral, is it, when someone loses their temper at you? But I didn't react. I thought, oh, progress. I'm making progress. So when we know a bit more what's going on, then we respond to the world a bit differently, don't we? And then, that's good, isn't it? That's the goal, to move through the world, like a boat with very few ripples, not causing more ripples, through churning up water all around me. Yeah. Yeah, so maybe there's a question in there. What is metta? What is the universal loving kindness? How does it really, really help you move through the world and sort of open up to things. So we've just got a few minutes. Let's just have a little grounding kind of sit. And actually, I'm not going to say very much. I'm going to leave you to just do the work. We've got about 4 minutes, which is not very long at all. What do you need to do in these 4 minutes? Where are you going to feel into? Great. So some of you might be here tomorrow night. Friday night's the last Friday of the challenge. And then following Thursday, this time next week, is the end of the 21-day meditation challenge. Getting our meditation together enough so that it's, developing a regular meditation practice. So I really hope, good luck. Find the time. 15 minutes a day, 20 minutes is good, half an hour. What can you do to bring awareness and mindfulness and an open heart more into your life? Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm.